Hello, my name is Michael Jones and I'm here to present to you the second part of a two-part episode of the World Ranking International Football podcast, where myself and journalist and author Sha Nen will preview all 24 teams ahead of the 2023 AFC Asian Cup, which begins on Friday, January the 12th, 2024. The episode will also feature a very special interview with Kyrgyzstan manager Štefan Tarkovič, whose team will be participating against Saudi Arabia, Thailand and Oman in the group stage. If you enjoy what you hear, please follow us on our socials. We're on X, TikTok and YouTube at World Ranking Pod and on Instagram at World_Ranking Pod. But for now, please sit back, keep working, driving, commuting, running or whatever else you do when you tune into a podcast and enjoy. Going on to Group D, we're going for a team that's also recently been hit by quite a difficult situation in terms of natural disaster, Japan with the earthquake, and hopefully that hasn't impacted things too much. But their football team really has an opportunity to bring some positivity back to the country. I think they will be expected to win. I know you said Iran are your favourites, but the way they played in the World Cup when they got those results, not just against Spain, but against Germany as well, makes them, from the outside, I think, many people's pick to win it. And they've got this array of attacking talent, but, and there is a but, if we remember their World Cup in 2022, there was, for all those amazing performances against Germany and Spain, there was that limp performance when they failed to win against Costa Rica. Is that arguably a performance that might tell us more about this Japan team at the Asian Cup than those games against Spain and Germany?
I don't think so. I think when it comes to Asian football, in particular, Japan has just decided that you're right, they're probably the overall favourites to win it because anyone that comes up against Japan are probably expected to lose. And that's not just at this tournament, that's been in the whole history of me watching Asian football. You look at this squad and you look at the players, and you just cannot see one bad player among the lot. I mentioned about a few players from other squads that are standout players, but with Japan, if I did that with their standout players, I'd be here for about 20 minutes. They're just all absolute talents, and they're not just talents that have just broken through to the side. They've got a good mixture of experience and youth. I think one big loss for them is in terms of goalkeepers. They've lost a lot of experience in the goalkeeping department with IG Kawashima retiring. He had a lot of experience. While he wasn't playing at club level towards the end of his career, he still had that experience in terms of the national team. And Zion Suzuki is probably going to be their number one in the tournament. He's got 4 caps. I know he's playing in Belgium, which is a good level, but that's probably, if I had to pick one weakness, that's probably the only weakness you can find in terms of Japanese football at the moment.
One of the players I'm really excited to see who I've not watched much before is Kura Takura at Borussia Mönchengladbach, because the 26-year-old has got a huge interest in him at the moment. Now, the next team in Group D that we will be looking at are Indonesia, who I think are another absolutely fascinating case. They've got a really interesting sort of diaspora of players. Now, I believe there's 2 Wolves players at this tournament. There is Hwang Hee-chan, who is in scintillating form for South Korea, which we'll come on to shortly when we discuss Group E. Then there is Justin Hubner. I'm not expecting much of the conversation to be about him. I just wanted to give him a quick mention. They've got this really interesting diaspora of players. They've got players based in a number of different countries. And does that make them one of the more unknowns going into this tournament, that they could surprise a few?
Indonesia is a lot like Malaysia in terms of getting a whole bunch of players who they naturalize. Australia's done the same. We've gotten players who can be eligible and naturalize them. Indonesia's done that and done that really well. The problem with Indonesia is they've had this issue for a number of years in terms of off-field dramas and in terms of off-field things with the Indonesian Football Federation. The squad's been banned from playing games, they've been banned from tournaments, and that's really hurt a lot of these players who are now like 27, 28 in their 30s even, that could have had 10, 20, 30 more games experience playing together, and they've only got not many. So it's a very inexperienced squad on paper. I think their most experienced player has 37 caps, which is not much at all. One player who's a big standout in terms of naturalizing players is Jordi Amat, who many of you blokes in England might remember from Swansea City. He actually come over to Asia via Malaysia with Johor, and he's only played, I think, 10 or 11 times for the Indonesian national team. But what a big player to bring into this tournament, and what a big thing for Asian football to have a player. I know he's not exactly Sergio Ramos, but he's got good pedigree. And guys like that are scattered throughout the Indonesian squad. So I think they can be one of those real tricky teams. But if I'm honest, I see them finishing third or fourth in the group because the group's just got too much quality.
I probably should have pointed out that the way these groups work is that the top two go through, and then it is down to some of those best third places. Now, our third team is a team with probably a bit more experience in Iraq, and we may mention Spanish influence on teams. They've got a Spanish coach in the name of Jesus Casas Garcia. I don't want to kind of bring this back to English or former based English players for every single team, but there is a couple of players I'm quite excited by, young players as well for this Iraq team. You've got Ali Al-Hamadi for AFC Wimbledon, who has been tearing up the fourth tier of English football, and he looks way above that level. I know there's a lot of championship interest in him. And then you've got Zidane Iqbal, who made his breakthrough at Manchester United. He's now at Utrecht in the Netherlands and is also making a bit of a name for himself. But aside from those two, they've got players who have been successful in Asia for a long time. Mohamed Ali, a 23-year-old forward, has already got 18 goals for his country. And the former Asian Cup winners back in 2007, I think it was, off the top of my head.
That's
Surely
correct.
they couldn't do it again, could they?
Look, I don't think they can at this tournament, if I'm being honest, but you're right. They do have probably, if it's not the most exciting young prospect team in the Asian Cup, it's got to be one of the top two or three because we've got a lot of good players coming in. I mean, Zidane Iqbal alone, a player of that caliber, we don't know what he's going to be like as a player because, to be honest, he's played maybe 4 or 5 first team football matches at senior level, but he's such a highly rated prospect. If he can get the experience at this Asian Cup in international level and he can kick on in club form, he can be a player that can lead them in the future. Same with Yusuf Amin, fantastic young prospect, but he's only got 2 caps. He's only got a handful of first team matches. So that's the real problem with Iraq. They got all these talented youngsters, but they don't have the experience. And a lot of these young guys are going to be really lucky to have a guy like Ali Adnan who has the experience in Serie A, he has the experience in international level to guide them through to the next level. So this Graham Arnold for Australia said that they have an eye on the World Cup. I think Iraq is a similar situation where they may not win the Asian Cup, but certainly they're going to be in good standing for qualification for the World Cup, and they're going to be in very good standing for the next Asian Cup too.
Like you mentioned, there's that lack of minutes, but what this cup does really provide that platform for is for them to maybe get that exposure, not just for their countries, but also at club level. And Group D might even be my favourite group. I think it is such a finely poised group. I think different teams have very different profiles and different strengths. And we're going to finish on Vietnam. I know when you mentioned China, you talked about their domestically based profile of players. You can say the same for Vietnam. Every single player is domestically based, and people might not know lots about Vietnamese football or the Vietnamese league, but fortunately Sha Nen does. So please tell us a little bit about them and a reason to be excited by them.
I think this whole group's going to be exciting because aside from one team who obviously is probably going to get through, any one of these teams could realistically get through and put in a good showing. And Vietnam's a team that at the last Asian Cup, they were a very exciting squad. They were a squad that every time they touched the ball, their attacking flow was just brilliant, and it shocked a lot of teams with how good they were. And they've come a long way in terms of youth football. Vietnam's been doing a lot of good things on the youth football stage. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can start translating that into senior football, because while their whole squad might be locally based, their squad is young. Their squads all come through these youth ranks together, much like Australia. And Vietnamese youth football is in the best position it's been since I followed Asian football. It's such an exciting time for not only Vietnamese football, but Asian football. I think they're going to be a powerhouse in the future, and they're certainly one that could surprisingly sneak through this group. Very exciting prospects all round.
I absolutely cannot wait. And we also get to see the return of Philippe Troussier, who is 68 years of age now. But you mentioned Graham Arnold, although they're kind of at different ends of the managerial career. Troussier has also had heavy involvement. He was a Vietnam under-19s coach for 2 years from 2019 to 2021. And is coincidentally the under-23s manager alongside the first team. And what's also really interesting about him is that he will be having this fascinating rematch with Japan, who he was a manager of when they got to the round of 16 when they hosted the World Cup all the way back in 2002. But he's managed Marseille, Morocco, Nigeria, Ivory Coast. He has got an exceptional CV. And if this is one of his last jobs, I think he can be very proud. Now, moving on to Group E, we start with another big hitter in South Korea. And if we talk about high-profile managers, how can we not talk about Jurgen Klinsmann? Now, Jurgen Klinsmann's reputation is somewhat mixed, but he has attacking players, Son Heung-min, who, what I love about Son Heung-min as well is you talk about players who maybe haven't devoted their time to their country. Son Heung-min can't be accused of that. You've also got Lee Kang-in at Paris Saint-Germain and Hwang Hee-chan, who's in double figures in the Premier League this season for Wolves. They have got the attack to cause absolute havoc in this tournament, don't they?
Son he could possibly be the best player Asia's ever seen. Everyone knows about his talents, but in my opinion, the most important player for South Korea and the player that's probably going to win them the tournament if they do win it is Kim Min-Jae. At the moment, he's in probably the top 5 defenders in the world in terms of form. What he's been doing at Bayern Munich is just absolutely fantastic. And if I'm not mistaken, he's just won the Asian Footballer of the Year or Korean Footballer of the Year for the first time, taking it off Son for a number of years. So it's not just attacking wise that Korea have this massive talent. It's all around the park, and they've probably got the best defense in the tournament as well. And goalkeeping wise, Kim Sung-ju, he's been there, he's done it. It's his third Asian Cup. He's got the experience. He's got the experience playing in the Middle East, which a lot of people might not realize what a big, difficult adjustment it is to play in this heat and humidity. He's been playing there for a season now, and it's just quality all around. I can't see anyone from this group taking top spot off South Korea.
I think that would be an extremely bold prediction if you did. And the first team they're coming up against is Malaysia, also managed by a South Korean in Kim Pang-gon. Malaysia have a huge number of players playing for Johor, who you mentioned before. Now, they are a team that if people don't know much about, they are a team that have absolutely wiped out Malaysian football. They have absolutely dominated the teams around them. How has this affected the national team, really? And has it been good for Malaysian football generally?
It's been very, very good for Malaysian football. It's not just the fact that Johor is such a big club and attract all these players. It's the fact that they're able to keep a lot of these players and they're able to attract a lot of people to Malaysian football to play for a number of other clubs. One player that's got 0 caps, who I know a lot of people in Malaysian football are excited to watch, is Romel Morales, who plays for Kuala Lumpur City. Even though they're not Johor, he's been probably one of the best players in the league, which is a massive credit to him considering he plays for a team that's not Johor Tigers. So yeah, I think it's been good overall for Malaysian football because it's attracted just quality players to the league, and a lot of the national team playing week in, week out at club level as well is nothing but good for them to bond and have that link on the field.
You mentioned a couple of the naturalized players there. They've got a Brazilian called Endrick as well for Johor, who should not be confused with the Real Madrid Endrick. The third team in this group are Jordan, who traditionally I've always been a real difficult obstacle for some of the giants of Asian football to come up against. However, they've come into this tournament in much more mixed form. They do have the talent of Musa Al-Tamari, who plays for Montpellier in Ligue 1, to count upon. But again, a team that's not been helped by political situations in and around them in recent months. What can be expected of them in this tournament?
Look, I'm not sure what to expect of Jordan in this tournament. You're right, they have been a squad who historically have been a big banana skin for a lot of these big sides, particularly when they're playing in the Middle East. Jordan can just get a result out in the Middle East. They're one of the best teams playing in the Middle East, but recently their form, I think you're a bit generous when you call it mixed. It's been pretty abysmal, to be honest. They haven't had a win for almost a year, and that was in a friendly. So yeah, it's been pretty dire straits for the Jordanian team, and maybe it can be a case where they can pull out some of that, what's the word, giant killing that they've shown in the past, particularly with FIFA World Cup qualification in this tournament, because I honestly do not know what to expect of this Jordan team. I don't know which Jordan team's going to show up, the Jordan team that's been playing for the past year or two, or the Jordan team that we know historically.
Our final team in Group E is Bahrain. Now, Bahrain are a team that tragically have been just within one game of qualifying for a World Cup twice. In 2006, it was Trinidad and Tobago, where they lost over two legs in the Intercontinental playoffs. And then it was New Zealand the following World Cup, where they lost 1-0 over the course of two legs. Now, they've got quite a well-known coach in Juan Pizzi, who's brought this, from what I'm aware, a bit of a Spanish playing style for Bahrain. Is that something that's translated into results and expectations for this tournament?
The results have yes and no come. The football that they've played on the pitch is really good. It's very free-flowing football, but I think Bahrain's a side that when they get in a situation where they need to get a result, I think they're the side that has the most experience to grind out a result in a tough game. I mean, I'd be very surprised if they're not the most experienced side in the whole tournament. And a lot of these players have played together their whole careers, just not only at club, but at country. So the way the new managers playing combined with their experience, I think Bahrain's a side that, if I'm honest, are probably my favourites to get out in position two in the group. I think Australia's playing them in the friendly match tomorrow, actually, at the time of recording. And I think it's going to be a tough test for Australia, and it's going to really show people before the tournament how dangerous Bahrain can be.
Pizzi, who was actually born in Australia but played for Spain for a career that included Barcelona, and his managerial career. Valencia, he led Chile to the Confederations Cup final in 2017, only for them to lose to Germany, and then resigned after missing out on the World Cup, but is back on the international scene after a stint with Saudi Arabia. We'll move on to Group F, last but not least, and very fitting that we talk about PSC, because Saudi Arabia now have another very high-profile manager in Roberto Mancini. How has it been for Mancini so far with Saudi Arabia, and for the current European Championship winning manager? Could he add the Asian Cup to his CV and be the joint holder for at least a few months until the Euros in the summer?
No, to put it short. Mancini so far with Saudi Arabia, his style and the type of footballers that Saudi Arabia are just aren't meshing. The only results he's really got are against small sides or friendly matches. Anytime they've come up against any serious opposition, it just hasn't worked out. I don't know if he will be able to get it to work out. Maybe I'm writing him off too early, but I think as brilliant of a manager as Mancini is and how much respect we should put on him and all his achievements, I think football may have moved past the style of football that he's trying to play. And I think football's caught up a little bit with Mancini. So I think it's going to be an uphill battle for him in this squad. And I think they certainly have the quality on the pitch to get out of the group. But I think it's going to be a real big struggle for them, particularly considering the opposition they're coming up against and how free-flowing attacking some of the squads they're coming up against play, particularly Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah, well, they shocked the world very positively when they beat Argentina 2-1. But Just before we move on with Hervé Renard, he was a manager I've always been really impressed with on the international scene, at least. Obviously, he's got 2 AFCONs to his name as well. Were the boots to fill maybe a bit bigger than what people realised when he left the job?
100%. I don't know if it's on Netflix in Britain, but there's a World Cup documentary called Captains of the World, and the first episode focuses on Messi and it shows the Saudi Arabia game versus Argentina. First half, Argentina obviously were all over Saudi Arabia, and it shows in the dressing room Hervé Renard absolutely giving the Saudi Arabian players a hiding and hyping them up and getting that belief in them. And I think that's the biggest difference with Renard. He was a good man manager, but he also knew Saudi Arabian culture, he knew Saudi Arabian football, and he respected it. With Mancini, I think just they're too far apart. I think he doesn't have that man management skill with these players to get the best out of them in a situation where they might have their backs against the wall. And I think they're massive boots to fill. I think he was one of the best managers in Asia.
Big boots to fill indeed. Well, we've got 3 teams left, and the first team of those 3 is Thailand, who recently parted with Alexandre Polking, a Brazilian coach who is now at Hanoi Police in Vietnam. Will this help or hinder Thailand ahead of the Cup when we're focusing on managers? Another group that I guess does have a bit of emphasis on new managers coming into this tournament with Masatada Ishii, the manager now.
I hope so, because the type of football Thailand have been playing over the past year or two has been really impressive attacking wise. But just the other day, they played against Japan and they got absolutely hammered. A couple of months ago, they played against Georgia and they got absolutely hammered. So when they've played against bigger nations, they just haven't been able to do what Thailand's historically done in Asia. Thailand historically in Asia, when coming up against these big sides, have been able to hold out defensively, frustrate teams, and then hit them with impressive, fast, quick counter-attacking football. And in the friendly matches I've seen against these bigger nations, they've just lost that ability, that classic Thailand football that can really frustrate people. And it's a real shame, and I hope they can get it back, because that was one of the most dangerous things about Thai football, the fact that they were so hard to break down. And then if you let your concentration lapse for a moment, they can hit you from all angles.
Well, one of the teams that will be looking to break them down is Oman, another team with a Croatian manager in Branko Ivankovic. They will be going into a really big grudge match versus Kyrgyzstan. And how important will that be to deciding qualification from this group?
That's going to be an exciting matchup, Kyrgyzstan versus Oman. They're both teams that play completely contrasting styles of football, and every time they've come up against each other, it's a tough, tense, and enthralling match. It's been one of those matches that could go either way. And while on paper, if you look at Kyrgyzstan versus Oman, they might just be 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, 0-all results. They're games that are just exciting from end to end. And yeah, as you said, it's going to be a grudge match. It's going to be a match that has a lot of fire and a lot of fight in it. And probably going to be one of the most exciting, if you're a neutral, matches to watch, Oman versus Kyrgyzstan for sure.
Well, we've only got a couple of minutes left before we hear from the Kyrgyzstan manager, Štefan Tarkovič. Before we do, I believe you've got a particular interest in workings with the national team. Would you just be able to tell us a bit about that, if that's okay?
Well, I was actually born in Kyrgyzstan, so that's a bit of an interest for me. I followed Kyrgyzstan football for quite a while. In terms of club level, you mentioned Malaysia having Johor as their main side. Kyrgyzstan sort of have the same thing with Dordoy Bishkek. A lot of the good national team players have exclusively played for them. So yeah, it's quite an interesting squad, and I'm very interested to hear what the Kyrgyzstan manager has to say, because it's a squad that can hurt a lot of people. It's a squad that has had the bulk of players together for a number of years, and it's a team that I think is going to excite a lot of people and surprise a lot of people. So very curious to hear what he's got to say about it.
Well, I really hope that you are supporting them a bit, because Štefan is really positive about their chances. And before we do, we talk about Beknaz Almazbekov, a young player on the books at Galatasaray. I'm delighted to say that he was announced in the final squad for a bit of important context. Hi, Štefan. thank you very much for joining me. We're not far away from the AFC Asian Cup, and you're already out in the Middle East, in the United Arab Emirates. Just would you be able to tell me a little bit about what you're doing there and how you're doing in general?
Yeah, I'm very happy that the Federation is happy and ready to prepare for us good preparation. We started already on the 6th of December because we stayed 1 week in Kyrgyzstan near the lake named Isikul. It is a lake which is located like 1,800 meters above the sea. So it was very good conditions to prepare players from the fitness side. So we did a good job over there. And now from 17th, we moved to Emirates. And at the moment, it's the most important part of the preparation. We are working very hard. I'm very happy that our players are ready to accept this hard-working and tough program. And so, yeah, we are looking forward to Asia Cup first game. And all of us hope that we will be fit and top motivated for the upcoming Asia Cup.
And how are you and Kyrgyzstan feeling ahead of this major tournament? Are you confident?
Yeah, it's confidential. So, of course, we know our position. We know that the opponent teams, Oman, Saudi Arabia, and Thailand, are very, very tough opponents. And for us, it is a very good challenge situation. Like I always saying to the players, what can be better than to challenge this situation against top players from the Asia region on the top tournament. So for them, it must be top motivation, and they need to be, of course, top prepared from the fitness side, from the performance side, from the football side. But at the same time, they need to be relaxed because I think that we have our quality. We are improving still. And I believe that our peak performance will be during the games on the Asia Cup.
It's not your first major tournament, however. You led Slovakia to the brink of the knockout stages at Euro 2020. And I was just wondering, from your experience across Europe, obviously it wasn't in one country, but how do you think that experience can help you prepare for the different challenges provided in January?
That's good for me, and I think that this is one of the reasons why KFU, Federation of the Kyrgyz Football, chose me, because this is not just I was leading the national team of Slovakia during to 2020 Euro, but I was assistant coach during to 2016 in France Euro in France. So I can say that at the moment I have two experiences because the system is the same. The Euro and the Asia Cup at the moment, they have the same system. And I think that it can bring me many advantages because, experience you can just reach, you cannot buy it.
With the slightly unusual permutations of those third place finishes, Slovakia were one of those really unlucky teams who just missed out. But focusing on your three group games this time, how do you assess Group F and your opponents? Like you said, three very different teams that you'll be facing.
Yeah, I will start from the end because last game we are playing against Oman, and it's something special because we met Oman during the summer. We played Kafa Cup and we challenged this team for the third position of the tournament. We lost 1-0. And in November, we played them in the World Cup qualification home, and we won 1-0. So we are going to meet them third time in a very short time. And of course, we know each other, and it will be very, very tough game. And I think that it can bring good challenge situation for us because, of course, Oman, as we want to win this game and to win this game, and it will be top challenge situation because it will be the last game on the program. Thailand at the moment, I think that they are better than Malaysia. Malaysia, we played in World Cup qualification in November, and we lost the game 3-4 in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur. But at the moment, what I saw, Thailand is a little bit higher in the performance, and it could be big challenge situation for us. And I think that it will be very, very important game for us, for them, and for the whole group. And of course, Saudi Arabia, what to say? We can sit there and we can speak 1 hour about their performance. We know the top quality coach. We know the players which are one of the top 6 association in the Asia region. And I saw this game on the World Cup. They are usually on the World Cup and they perform top level. We could see the game against Argentina. So yeah, that's all things what I'm saying bring us a good opportunity to prove our performance, to prove our maybe mentality, our strengthness. I believe that all these things could be good for us, and the tournament and games find us on the top peak of our performance, like a team and of course like individual players' performances.
Sure, everybody who saw that Saudi Arabia performance, particularly against Argentina, will have fond memories of that team, but it'll be a fantastic match and opportunity for yourselves. A player who caught the spotlight a short time ago was Beknaz Almazbekov, who has been on the books of Turkish giants Galatasaray. Since taking the job, have you been able to work with him closely? And for a player who spent time at such a big club in the world, do you have particular hopes for him or advice for his career?
There's not just Beknaz, but I think that in Kyrgyzstan there are very talented players, and they need to be discovered, and they need to be lead for their pathway in a good direction. But regarding Beknaz, I met him and I was cooperating with him during the October FIFA date. We played in Bahrain. We have camping in Bahrain, and we played against Bahrain and then against Philippines. And I can say that this guy in his age is very, very talented. At the moment, he has no lot of experiences from the senior level football. At the moment, he's playing for the Galatasaray under 19. They are playing they played Champions League in this age category. Could bring him very, very good experiences. But we are still speaking about youth football and senior level football, especially on this international level, like Asia Cup is much, much higher. So yes, Beknaz is very talented players, and I like to work with this kind of players in this age. But for them, it is all challenge situation. So at the moment, he is with us. He's preparing, and I hope that he can reach his not maximum, because he's a young guy, and I believe that the peak of his performance will come later on. But we are working hard to bring him to the best level performance as he can be.
Thank you very much. And one of the questions we love to ask people just before we finish is, if people are going to watch Kyrgyzstan during the Asia Cup, what type of team would you want them to see, and what type of team can they expect to see?
Yeah, that's challenging. Like I said many times, I believe that these guys can bring, especially people in the Kyrgyzstan, feeling of proud, because Kyrgyz people are very proud, and they are fighting nation, what I recognize during my stay, and they love football. So I think that these guys which are preparing for this tournament can bring them very nice memories. Of course, with the challenging situation in the games, they bring them believing that the Kyrgyz nation, on the one side, they are not too big, because this 8 million population nation, but on the other side, they can challenge big countries with and big nations, and this fighting spirit, this believing in good result can bring our performance to the level that we will enjoy the game, and hopefully we will promote from the group.
Well, best of luck for the tournament, Štefan, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much for inviting, and of course, have a nice day, and I go back to job. Bye.
Good stuff. Thank you very much for listening, and I sincerely hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you did, please rate us or thumbs us on any of the podcasting platforms which you listen to us on, and follow or subscribe both on here and on our social medias, as it will really help us to grow. I'll be back next Wednesday with enough previewing done, and we'll start reviewing the first round of group stage games in both the Asian Cup and AFCON with a very special panel of guests. Until then, goodbye for now.